So, what time? Is it 8:40? Okay. Okay, welcome back. So now I'm officially closing public testimony, and we're going to, oh no, I'm so sorry. No, we have to do, item Harbor Commission questions. So, Commissioners, Commissioner Holsinger?
Yes, thank you. President Bernardo, you indicated that this would be for both for questions and comments.
Sure.
I don't have any questions of staff because I've had an opportunity to work with this budget for a while and ask questions, and appreciate the staff's assistance with that. Also, we've worked with the staff to consider the specifics of both expenses and revenues, where we can decrease expenses, where we can increase revenues, and that's really very difficult, despite the fact that expenses are increasing, have been steadily increasing over the years, as we've seen in our private lives as well as our business lives away from the Commission. So the other thing I want to note is that the budget that any budget we adopt is a dynamic and changing document. It's modified and amended virtually month to month when we have increased expenses or items that we don't pay money on, or when we get non-recurring revenues such as grant monies coming in. So this is going to change over the course of the fiscal year. That being said, we do need to adopt a budget now. Maybe not tonight, but the next meeting is our last opportunity. We have a responsibility to the public to adopt a budget, and we hope it to be as responsible and as fiscally sound as possible. Given that, I want to note that we have over $40 million in total assets. One of those is the El Granada lot that is in the process, that's been declared surplus and is eligible for sale. That could increase our $11.5 million cash on hand. We also, in the big picture, have to consider that we have $8 million conservatively estimated in revenue, both operating revenue and non-operating revenue for the 2014-15 budget year that's coming up. I would note that as I look at that revenue, I believe that the real property taxes is seriously underestimated. We will have had well over $6 million in operating revenue from our budget income from property taxes this fiscal year, and yet we're estimating less than $5 million in property taxes next year. I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not a real estate broker. I'm not a national or international economist, but I believe that the real property values in the county are continuing to be strong and continuing to increase. So I believe that just based upon property tax revenue, our share could cover the budget deficit in its entirety. We also have not considered in our budget the non-recurring revenues at all. They're not estimated, they're not included. It was alluded to by the general manager about grant monies that are available for such things as the West Trail and the restroom out there. I'd also note that as part of this budget, we have to include depreciation expense. That must be included. These are a long-term expense that's estimated, but they're generally absorbed as part of our operating budget. We don't have a reserve for depreciation expense that we set up and then take out for whatever part of our operating budget comes up in the current or the projected budget year. That depreciation expense for this budget is $1.6 million. That's not cash in hand. That's not money that has to be spent, but that's something we have to account for. That by itself takes care of almost all of the proposed budget deficit in the current proposed budget. It is clear we have to make hard decisions about what to cut and what not to cut. There have been cuts to the capital improvements proposed. We're deferring some dock finger construction. We're deferring the demolition of the Romeo Pier. We're deferring the purchase of or construction of coastside offices. We budgeted that and approved $1.8 million for that. There were other reasons why that fell through as a result of the sellers' negotiating tactics. But the reality is that in the face of of what are perceived to be hard times and on paper a $2 million budget deficit, saving that money now and holding it in reserve is a prudent thing to do. We have routine businesses and routine capital projects that we've had to defer, such as the sidewalk extension improvement. We've had to put that aside, despite the fact that we were given compelling evidence by our tenants that the increased revenues for them would result in that project being paid for within a 3-year period of time. But in this current situation, this current climate, we can't afford to put that money out. That's going to be an improvement for the public, improvement for our tenants, and improvement for the district and the public as a whole. Finally, I note that we are starting a strategic planning process. We're asking them to look for sources of revenue. We're asking them to look for where we can be more fiscally and financially prudent. We have to look at those things. I'm not saying that we can be complacent. I'm not saying that this budget is ideal. I'd like to see a completely balanced budget every year. But we do have the resources to weather this current budget deficit, if it is truly a deficit, and I don't believe it is, and begin making plans and changes for the future by looking at the detail more closely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, thank you. I don't think that I'll need my full 5 minutes. What I wanted to say was there's no doubt in anybody's mind that this is a deficit budget. A deficit budget obviously occurs when you spend more money than you take in. And in this case, we're $1.9 million beyond what we take in. But if you look at that $1.9 million, 1.3 is going to a debt service that will stop. He says, he being the general manager, says in 4 years, I predict it'll be stopped in 3 years. So that's 1.3. And there's $545,000 in a capital project. You put them together, for this year, we're about $50,000 in the red. I mean, that's nothing. That's as close to the balanced budget as you can be. That's not a problem. In 4 years, the last year of that debt will be $1.7 million. And it's already there in restricted. And we've determined what restricted means. We cannot use it. This was part of our negotiations with the state of California, Department of Boating and Waterways. They said, we want you to put aside one payment. And I can appreciate that. So if we ever became in default and didn't pay them by the end of the year, and all of a sudden here it is February or March of the following year, and they say, hey, you didn't pay us. So, well, gee, we're having financial problems. All right, give us the last payment. So that'll give them an extra year to decide what to do with the district, as they've decided to do with other harbor districts that have had problems in the past years. And that's why we're in this situation. So it's really 3 more years of payments, and then we don't have an annual expenditure of 1.3 anymore. Unless we borrow more money from the state, I don't see that happening. Now all we have to do is manage what we have here, and we're debt-free. There's no other agency, and you can go anywhere you want, that has paid off $19 million in debt in about 14 years, especially during the economy for the last 10 years. You know, kudos. We've done a great job. You know, we've gotten lucky. We received money from WEDA, which is Water Emergency Transportation Authority. We received money from the city of South San Francisco. But in a business manner, you have to have a little bit of luck with your good financial responsibility. This agency has had the fiduciary responsibility, and I've told it to other cities, equal if not better than most agencies that we deal with. We are a solvent agency. No matter what you hear, no matter what you read in the paper, all the numbers are here. Mr. Ratz and I, who have a great deal of respect for, we disagree on how procedurally it should be handled or how it should be booked, which is an economic accounting term. But all accounting standards that we practice are very prudent. Nobody fully funds all their retirement or termination benefits. They're not retirement, they're termination benefits. No one does that. But we did that. Now you know, and we all know, as I said earlier, all 30 employees aren't going to pull the pin tomorrow morning and cost us $2.9 million. That's not going to happen. Two-tiered system wasn't raised, and it should have been raised. So we know what our costs are going to be as we go on forward. We are in very, very good financial shape. And those who say you go into your reserves, yes, that's what reserves are for. And not only do we have reserves, we have prudent reserves for emergencies. You know, we could pay off our debt tomorrow, take all the benefits of retirement of 2.8, 2.9, whatever it is. You take the 1.8 for the building, which now we don't seem to be able to purchase, and you add a little bit more, and the debt is paid off this year if we wanted to. But it's not good, sound practice. Just because you have the money, you don't want to pay off your debt. You want to hold on to your money because, as they say in the old days, cash is king, and that's what you want to do. And that's what we practice here. There's no fat in this budget. This is all very, very prudent, and I'm pleased to be part of it. And if we were voting tonight, I would be voting yes. Thank you for the time, Mr. President.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Paravano.
No comment at this time.
No comment, okay. Commissioner Brennan.
So I feel that it's very important that we go over the things that were removed from the budget on May 21st that we did not get to at our last board meeting, and I do not want that taken out of my 5 minutes. Okay. So either I can go over those items or the general manager preferably would do it. That's his job. So if we could have him go over those items, I think that's really how this should happen.
We've done it.
Okay, why don't we have Mr. Grinnell address that issue regarding, I'm sorry, May what? Sorry, May?
Our last meeting, May 21st.
Okay, May 21st meeting.
The items removed from the budget, May 21st.
Mr. Grinnell, do you have what she's holding?
We do not here.
Okay, he doesn't have it, so he can't address it. He doesn't have it.
Would you like to
in front
borrow
of
it
him.
from me, or should I do it for you?
You can go ahead.
Okay, so I don't want this taken out of my 5 minutes?
Okay.
Okay, so on May 21st, we received a document which was item 13, additional information attached or details of changes made from May 7th, 2014 budget document to the May 21st, 2014 budget, and these changes are also reflected in the current budget that we're reviewing tonight, but they are not redlined as they should be. So that's why I want to make sure that we go over them. So if you look at page 2 of this document, there is a list of changes made to the budget for the 5/21/14 meeting. It lists pages where things were changed. 7 of 39, and then it says page 32 of 39. It doesn't make any sense to me, but I guess there were 2 different places where this item was changed. It says Harbor Commission advertising. There's been, there was an amount of $7,500 allotted for advertising, and the amount has been increased to $32,500, which is a $25,000 addition for advertising and marketing. I definitely don't support that. So I think we need to take that back out. We don't need to be increasing our expenses. We need to be reducing our expenses. Okay, next item, which you can find on page 7 of 39 and page 20 of 39 in the budget from 5/21. Repairs and maintenance has been, let's see, was $336,000, now is $276,000. So we're reducing the amount we're willing to, or will be able to spend on repairs and maintenance. So $60,000 has been removed, $50,000 for signage and $10,000 for ground rehabilitation. Page 7 of 39 and 20 of 39 at Pillar Point Harbor, we have harbor marina equipment for $65,300 was allotted, and now we have an amount of $25,300, so $40,000 were removed. For fuel tank, $10,000, signage, $20,000, $10,000 signage, waterside entry. On page 7 of 39 and 20 of 39 for Pillar Point, we have Harbor Marina Public Access. We had an amount allotted for $40,000, and that amount was entirely removed. So what that means is we had $20,000 for bike racks and $20,000 for barbecue racks. All that has been removed, okay? Then on page 8 of 39 and 21 of 39 for Pillar Point, we've got rip wrap for fishing pier carryover, $157,558. We've removed all of that money. Even though it's still listed as a project in our current budget, we took that amount out. On page 8 of 39 and page 22 of 39 for Pillar Point, we've got the Lee C sidewalk, $200,000, which was a wild guess at what that would cost. The entire amount has been removed for the Lee C sidewalk, even though the board recently voted to support the project, and the project represents providing Americans with disabilities access, ADA access, and we do have a safety problem with the sidewalk currently, which desperately needs to be addressed. I'm very concerned that we aren't dealing with that, so that's been taken out. Then page 8 of 39 and 23 of 39 for Pillar Point, we took out $650,000 for Romeo Pier, which was going to be another wild guess of a cost to remove the pier. The entire amount was taken out of the budget. What really concerns me about this is that we recently approved spending $61,000 for the engineering studies that would get us Coastal Commission approval to do the project and remove the pier. So we are spending $61,000 for a study, an engineering plan that is going to be useless by the time we finally get around to use it, because we're not allotting any money to do the actual work. And you can't get approval for a project and then just wait forever to do that project. So I'm very concerned about us continuing to spend money on engineering plans for things that we never actually do. It's wasteful, and we need to really curtail that sort of unwise spending. Okay, page 7 of 39 and 26 of 39, Oyster Point, repairs and maintenance, amount $136,500. Was reduced by $25,000. Then the current amount is $111,500. If this is still accurate, I don't know. And that was for tree replacement. Page 7 of 39 and 26 of 39, Oyster Point, Harbor Marina public access, $20,000 was allotted in the budget. The entire amount was removed for bike racks and barbecue racks. Okay, so then we've got a net of, let's see, $1,167,558 if you total it up. So those are the things that were taken out that we never got to hear about on May 21st and are not in the budget that we have now. Thank you for letting me mention that, because I think it's really important that we get that out there to people so they understand what's going on with the budget.
Point of information before you start your 5 minutes.
Yep.
85 to 90% of those items that you mentioned are items that I brought up and suggested be removed, because if I recall, finance director put them in little packages for us, and I went right down the road and we talked about every one of those at either the last meeting or the meeting before, and that's how they got removed.
Well,
I mean, the budget I'll be brief.
Okay.
The budget as a practice, we can get to vote on yay or nay on when it's done, but everybody has an opportunity to put things in or take things out, and then we vote on it. That was my point of information, and now if she'll start her 5 minutes, I'll be quiet.
I'm not ready to start my 5 minutes yet, since we're still talking about the 21st.
No, I don't think that's fair.
You got to make the comment,
No,
so I'm going to respond.
Okay, let her
Through the-
respond, and then
through
we'll
the
give her
president-
5 minutes.
Through the
Okay.
president.
Commissioner
I'd just like to say that I do recall that Commissioner Tucker did request some changes. I don't believe he requested every single one of these changes, but it was something like this. And I do remember that he is the person that requested the addition of $25,000 for a PR consultant.
Communications.
And I think that was to help him with his 2014 election.
Well,
But
Commissioner Brennan, those are
anyway,
assumptions that are inappropriate.
Anyway,
very
let me finish. So,
Take charge. That's terrible.
excuse
Okay,
me?
Commissioner
Making me
Tucker,
feel bad, like
Can we just wrap this up?
Because we'll be here all night.
Can we
let
wrap
her
this up?
finish?
Thank you. Thank you. So the point is that when I make suggestions, they don't end up in the budget. When Commissioner Tucker makes suggestions, they end up reflected in the budget. That's all I have to say about that. So I'm ready to start my 5 minutes. Okay, so one of the things I've noticed is we haven't been managing what we have. Our facilities are in disrepair due to deferred maintenance over several decades, and we're also not improving things to a point where we can generate new revenue. An example of this would be the sidewalk project. There's a project where it was not a big ticket item. We could make a simple improvement. We could provide ADA access for people. We could improve public safety, and we could help our tenants generate revenue, which would in turn generate revenue for the district because we would be able to get more money in fees coming in. This is the perfect opportunity for us to create an actual revenue generating stream, which is what we need to be doing. But we're not going to do that project, which is unfortunate. And that's just one example. This seems to happen over and over again. So that really concerns me. It's like I don't know how to explain it. The word ghetto comes to mind. Okay, let me keep moving. Commissioner costs. We've got very excessive commissioner costs with regards to our health benefits. And this is an area where we could be reducing costs. This would be something the board could do. It would help the district. It would be a benefit to the district. There's no reason that we, as board members, as part-time elected officials, need to be collecting such excessive benefits. There are so many opportunities for reducing expenses in this budget. I could go on and on. I don't have time to do that. I mean, if you look at our legal costs, we've got, in fiscal year 13-14, $186,000 in legal costs, and the board is considering hiring a new attorney that costs potentially twice as much as what we pay now. And so they're just places where we need to really think things through, and we need to think about how we can reduce our expenses. Another point is we are paying way, way, way too much for our website service. It's completely out of control. I know we have to adjust how we're dealing with our website soon because we've got to respond to the civil grand jury's report. And I hope that at that time when we are responding back to the civil grand jury and that response needs to be coming from the board and approved by the board, we look at ways to bring down the costs for the work that's happening on our website. And Lord knows we need to make some improvements with the website. So I know in the past I asked for marketing costs, and I did get a great spreadsheet, which I appreciate, but I believe that the website costs were not included in that spreadsheet. So if I could get the website costs included in that spreadsheet, which should fall under marketing, that would really help me out in better understanding. And I think that would be good for the whole board since we have to respond back to the civil grand jury regarding our website. We should be looking at those costs really clearly and assessing what we're spending there. Let's see. I understand that there is an outside consultant right now doing a study on fish buying fees, and I'm wondering if that is included in the budget. That's a question for the general manager.
This would be in this.
So okay. And so.
It's going to be in the one you're looking at.
Okay, and the board didn't approve that. How did that happen?
Peter?
That was a function of staff's response to what was heard at different board meetings from commissioners and the public in an attempt to help collect information that will enable the board to take another look at the fees that currently exist in the leases of the three wholesale fish unloader buyers at Pillar Point Harbor. And as you will recall, the board did decide a couple of board meetings ago to, in fact, open up discussions with any or all of those lessees if they so choose by inquiring in writing about talking about that. And that look at fees is part of the information that the commission has wanted to be better able to assess whether or not changes are warranted in those leases. What was mentioned.
Who was the consultant doing the work? You didn't,
Dornbush and Associates.
Dornbush. And what is the cost of their work?
It's about $14,000.
Shouldn't the board be approving that type of a
Not
consultant?
necessarily. I have a $15,000 expenditure cap that the board has provided to me, and I have a certain degree of discretion provided to me by the board to take certain actions.
So you hired the consultant, but you think it's going to not exceed your 15,000?
I know it won't.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that. So on page 35 of 53, we've got the rundown, which we went over earlier, of things that are still, projects that are still included. I have a couple questions. With regards to paid parking, what comes to mind is the security cameras. The district paid for security cameras and then couldn't maintain them, and so we had to sell them for scrap because for whatever reason, we weren't able to maintain them. And I don't want to hear a long story about that right now, but what concerns me is if we install paid parking, I don't see how reasonably we could expect our existing staff to maintain the paid parking, especially considering they're going to also have to deal with a bunch of exemptions and validations and, collections and whatnot. And then we've got, on top of that, we've got Coastal Act issues of accessibility. So this just sounds like a real, let's just say this project is not going to happen for a long time. So there are things like that that's like a real head scratcher why that's even included in this budget when we're cutting other things out which are actually doable and that we've done engineering studies to support. We haven't done any studies to support paid parking that are relevant today. We'd have to start from scratch and we'd have to start developing a conversation with the Coastal Commission, and that hasn't happened yet. Onto the launch ramp. I understand that there's $25,000 for design for the restroom, and this is, we just did a restroom renovation over there, and I'm concerned that this isn't necessarily the best use of that money. So I'll leave it at that. We've got the riprap repair for fishing pier, and there's no money included for that. That shouldn't be in the budget. If there is no money set aside for a project, take it out of the budget, please. If you want to put it in there, then there's got to be some money associated with doing the work. Removing the finger dock project doesn't make any sense to me because we've already spent all kinds of money preparing to do that project. And information hasn't really been provided to the board tonight. You've talked about taking it out, but what about all the money we've already spent, working on getting that project going and also getting the approval through the Coastal Commission? I know Harbor Master Grindy has done a lot of work with the Coastal Commission to try to move that project forward, and now we're going to take it off the table, and it's another public safety issue. So here's a place where we've got a dangerous situation. We've invited the public onto uneven finger docks where people are selling fish to the public. This can't continue. We've got to fix those. We can't have the public on docks that are unsafe. And then back to Romeo Pier again. I just think it's so unfortunate that we agreed as a board to spend $61,000 on an engineering report, and then we pulled the project out of the budget. It just feels like the $61,000 money down the drain. If we were going to pull the project from the budget, we never should have spent the $61,000, and this just happened like 2 meetings ago. And then again, I just want to re-highlight the Lisi sidewalk. There's a revenue stream, and we have nixed a project that actually would generate revenue for this district. And it's frustrating because I know we all want to increase the revenue. I do think that we're going to have to take a hard look at reducing our expenses, and I don't feel like this budget has done that. I feel like it's just cherry-picked out projects that many of which are improvements that are important for public safety, and it's like we're just going to continue to not do the things that we need to do to make our facilities accessible and safe, and do that while we don't make any hard choices. And the hard choices are looking at how to remove expenses that are recurring expenses that the district has. So thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I would like to just say just a few words, and this should be less than 5 minutes. First of all, I want to echo what Commissioner Tucker said about reserves. The challenge with the term reserves is if you have too many reserves, you're hoarding. And if you have less reserves, the sky is falling. So it's like you can never win when it comes to reserves. That's one thing I've seen at cities as well. Number two, I want to take this time to applaud staff. That's the one thing I really would like to do is applaud staff, especially our finance director, Deborah Galarza, who jumped in, when our previous finance director left unexpectedly. She just jumped in, sort of took control and started, fixing things and cleaning things up, and finding things and uncovering things and fixing them. And also working with our external auditor, who has given us a clean bill of health year after year. And I really do appreciate and respect this process because I think this type of discussion and debate is important among the commissioners, among the community, because this is how budgets are created. It's through discussion, it's through wrangling, it's through argument and disagreement. Thirdly, I agree with one of our public comments regarding the communication of the finances. Mr. Grinnell, thank you for that background and contextual, I can't speak tonight, background that you provided that gives us sort of the backdrop for which this budget comes. I think that's really important. Communicating finances is never easy, especially for people who don't have a financial background. I mean, I myself, I don't come from background. I come from a communications background. So I do understand the challenges of communicating something like finances, and it's not easy. So thank you for that. And lastly, I just want to caution my fellow commissioners about discussing closed session items because those can be potentially serious violations. So thank you. That's all I want to say. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. President, I move to adopt the budget as proposed at tonight's meeting.
I'm sorry, please repeat that louder.
I move to adopt the budget as proposed at tonight's meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second that motion.
I hear a motion and a second. A roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Opposed?
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Caravano?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye. Motion passes. We are now, let's see here.
Let's
see, I'm therefore closing public testimony on the budget hearing, and then we are now at consent calendar. Items 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. These are all meeting minutes from different meetings that go back to April.
I'd like to take them off consent.
Okay, take them off consent. All of them?
It's probably just easier to, I won't talk about all of them, but in general
Well,
terms.
then for purpose of discussion, I'll make a motion to approve so we can have a conversation.
Okay, thank you. Motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
A motion second. Commissioner Brennan, go ahead.
Thank you. So with regards to the minutes, I first want to just mention that I know that our staff, I don't know if Debbie Nixon is doing the minutes now or somebody else, but I know in the past she's done the minutes. and she's done an amazing job with the minutes. Incredibly detailed minutes, probably way more detailed than what was needed, but very much appreciate that, that detail, because it's useful, especially before videotaping was being done of the meetings. What our minutes have evolved into, that I guess we're calling them action minutes, they seem to get further and further, or let's just say more and more concise, to the point now where there isn't even any reference to public comment and who made a comment. I mean, recently we had minutes where at least the person's name was mentioned, but not what they said. And it didn't say whether they opposed or supported the item, but at least their name was included. Now we don't even have their names included anymore. And I just feel like these minutes are very, there's a few instances where there's a name, but not always. I just feel like these minutes have become more and more public unfriendly, and that concerns me to the point where it's more useful just to look at the agenda than the minutes. So I don't know how much worse it could get as far as the minutes go. So if we go to item 10 on page 4, I'm going to give 2 examples.
What date?
April 16.
We've got item 10. We've got, this was a decision to allow commercial activity permit for wind over water kiteboarding. And this was a discussion you guys probably remember at Oyster Point Marina, where we had 2 people show up, one who is a current business owner there that has a kiteboarding business, and the other person was there who wanted to start a new business, which is what we were deciding on. And they both gave really interesting testimony during public comment. There's no reference, there's not even their names listed here. And we also altered the staff recommended motion and included some things that they asked for, and that's not referenced here either. So this is just an example of how our minutes have really become very useless, and that concerns me. Another example of that would be on, let's see if I can find it. Item 14. We've got, this is a correction, so on item 1, identification of real property negotiator, it says Bernardo identified Grinnell as the real property negotiator, but it says that Bernardo was not present at the meeting. So I think that needs to get corrected. Item 14, so that was May 28th. So it's just correcting that someone else must have identified the real property negotiator. Okay. So there are a lot of other things. I don't want to, go into detail on all of it. I just wanted to give a couple of examples, but for those reasons, I will vote no on the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I heard a motion and a second. Any other questions on this before we do the vote? Okay, roll call, please.
Opposed?
Aye.
Commissioner Caravano,
I voted to abstain on number 9.
Commissioner Tucker,
Aye.
President Bernardo,
Aye, and I abstain on, I'm going to abstain on item 14. So motion carries. We are now at staff reports. Administration and Finance, General Manager, Director of Finance, and HR Manager.
Mr. President, first point of personal privilege.
Sure.
At the last meeting, we passed a motion that I had made which was that when any of the lessee fish buyers on Johnson Pier, or all of them collectively, submitted a written proposal or request to renegotiate the financial terms of their lease, we would agendize it for the next meeting.
This
If-
is off topic.
If staff reports and other business prevent us from getting to the agendizing of the next meeting, we would not be in compliance with either the letter or the spirit of what the commission approved.
I see where you're going. Okay.
So I would ask that this particular item for agenda setting be taken out of order so that we can honor our commitment
Right.
to the public.
Item 19, you're right. So in other words, put agenda setting before the staff reports.
At least the agenda setting for this one item.
I see what
I
you're saying.
support moving agenda setting, but I'm very disappointed that agenda setting is this far back in our agenda. Agenda setting is supposed to be at the beginning of the meeting, not at the end of the meeting, and because of our 10 o'clock hard stop, we might not get to it, and so that's why it needs to be at the beginning, along with the public comment, which of course would be before agenda setting.
Okay. Okay, noted. Thank you. Let's go ahead and move agenda setting. Well, let's move it up right now. And let's. So we're going to just take out agenda setting right now under item 19. So 19B we're going to take right now, and then we'll move with the rest of the agenda.
Yes. Mr. President, in light of the written communication from Larry Furtado, President of 3 Captain Sea Products, Inc., one of our lessees on Johnson Pier, to renegotiate his lease in one financial aspect, as he specifically describes the unloading fees, I move that this be placed on the agenda for the next meeting. And in that regard, I ask a question of legal counsel. Should this be put on as a closed session item because it's financial negotiations with a tenant, or should it go on an open session item first in order to do a closed session?
You may go into closed session to discuss real property negotiations, and the terms of your lease is an allowable closed session.
Okay, so I would ask that it be placed on the next agenda as a closed session item.
I'll second.
I have a question about the motion.
I have a motion and a second question. Commissioner Brown.
Are we inviting the tenants, the tenants to come to the closed session? Because are we just going to, we've had 1 million closed sessions on this in the past. It's never yielded any results. So is this a point at which we're going to invite the tenants to come to the closed session?
Well, first, with all due respect to my fellow commissioner, to again refer to closed session discussions and the substance of them and what has or hasn't happened, I believe is a violation of the Brown Act. So I would not want to respond to any question or comment that relates to what has gone on in previous closed sessions. Our motion, the motion we passed at the last meeting was when any one or collectively all of those 3 lessees communicated in writing a request to negotiate the financial terms of, or renegotiate the financial terms of their lease, that we would take it up as an agenda item at the next meeting. Because it has to do with finances and potential negotiations of a lease or renegotiations of a lease with a tenant, I propose that it be on a closed session. So no one other than the commissioners and appropriate staff are allowed to be in closed session.
That's not true. Is that true, Jean?
Yeah, that's correct.
Can't we have closed, in the past, this district has held closed session with leasees. That has happened with this district in the past. So what I just heard doesn't match up with the practice of this district. Can you please clarify?
It has never occurred during the time that I have been your attorney that you've had a lessee in a closed session with you, so I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Well, that's not what I heard from the leasees.
Well, what you heard is incorrect then.
Okay, so let's move on now.
So-
So I heard a motion and a second. Do you have any other questions,
I
Commissioner
have a
Brennan?
question. If we were to come out of closed session with some proposed change, I don't know what that would be, how would that then be negotiated with the leasees? Because we did say at the last meeting where this came up that we were very clear that we did not want the general manager to be the negotiator of those leases going forward. So what would the next steps look like?
Mr. President, upon a personal prerogative, I believe, again, Commissioner Brennan, with all due respect, continues to refer to discussions in closed session and therefore violate the Brown Act. And I would respectfully, through the chair, ask her, or through the president, ask her to defer doing so.
We discussed in open session that the board wanted to have someone other than the general manager negotiate the leases going forward. I believe it was Commissioner Tucker who mentioned that first, and that was open session, not closed session.
Okay.
That's something, if I may, Mr. President, just to put
Yes.
a top on it, that's something that could conceivably be discussed in a closed session.
Okay.
And that's as far as I'll
Okay.
go with that.
You know what? We are treading on closed session territory
Yes,
here.
thank
Every
you.
conversation, so I really caution my colleagues.
Okay.
And let's just move with the motion, please, because I don't want any violations
Well, I have a
of Brown
comment
Act.
on the motion,
Okay, Commissioner.
which is, I think we need to read the letter that we received so that the public understands
Okay.
what we're doing.
I will read it to the public then. June 4th, 2014, to the Harbor Commissioners. From the last meeting, we understand the Harbor is willing to renegotiate the unloading fees. 3 Captain Sea Products is looking forward to working with the Harbor Commissioners for fair and competitive rates to other commercial harbors, so our business can grow and create more revenue for the Harbor. Sincerely, Larry Furtado, President, 3 Captain Sea Products Incorporated, 1 Johnson Pier, Princeton by the Sea. That is the letter to which we're all referring, for the record. So I heard a motion and a second. Any other questions? And we should vote. Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Terrabonne?
Abstain.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye. Motion carries to place this on the next meeting's agenda for a closed session item.
I have something I'd like to put on a future agenda when it's my turn.
It's your turn.
Okay. So I recently learned that the district did not obtain permits for the electrical project in the Pillar Point Harbor parking lot, and this was a underground line or pipe that was run from the warehouse to the restroom facility that's close to our recreational boats, so liveaboards. So it was run literally clear across the whole parking lot, from basically near the concessionaire's building, because that's kind of near where the warehouse is, all the way to the restroom facility. And I don't understand why the district didn't apply for permits and why those permits, that permit application wasn't bundled with the restroom renovation that happened, because it seems like it would have made sense to bundle the electrical project with the restroom project. Then we could have got all our permits together, and we could have done our CDP, which is a coastal development permit, all at the same time, got the Coastal Commission to approve it, and then
get a
go do
motion?
it. So the motion is, and not only that, but there also were not permits taken out for the new hoist that was placed at the end of Johnson Pier.
Can we get a motion?
Both projects are on hold, and the hoist can't be used, and the electrical project is on hold because of lack of permits.
Okay, is this an agenda
very-
item?
This
I'm
is
sorry,
serious
wait,
because.
is this an agenda item?
It is, I'm getting
Okay.
there. This is serious because we could be fined for not following the proper process that's required. So I would like to agendize that we have a board discussion about permitting and get a full explanation from the staff about what happened with these 2 projects and why permits weren't pulled, and if we're looking at getting fines. And I don't know how to
So this
summarize that.
So what I'm hearing, Commissioner Brennan, in a nutshell, is it's an informational report on these particular items.
Lack of permits.
That's it, on permitting and the process and our procedures and protocols and what we went through.
Permits falling through the cracks.
Permits.
Lack of obtaining proper permits.
Permits. So it's an informational on permits. And Harbor Master Grindy, you could work with General Manager to prepare a report
No.
on that, or?
There's a motion.
Oh, that's
here.
right. I'm so sorry. I'm jumping way ahead here. I hear a motion. Do I hear a second? No second. Okay, just for the sake of agenda setting, I will second that. So a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
No.
Commissioner Terrabonne?
No.
Commissioner Tucker?
No.
President Bernardo?
Aye. Motion does not pass. Any other agendas, setting items that you have?
No, thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, any other agenda setting before we go back to staff reports?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioners. So now we are back to staff reports, Admin Finance, General Manager, Director of Finance, and HR Manager.
Yes, you have my written report. I'll take any questions. I have just one thing to add. I would like to propose that the board consider and adopt a proclamation of appreciation to the firm of Aronson, Dickerson, Cohn, and Lanzone, starting with my esteemed colleague on my right and her colleagues at the firm for their absolute marvelous service down through the years, all the years that I've been with them and before, and now, and put that on the next agenda. Sure. And I can do that, which I just wanted to kind of get a sense of the board.
Sure. Do I hear?
It's my intention to do that.
Yes. I think that's a yes. Yes.
I would just note it's particularly appropriate that the general manager does it because he's the one with the most knowledge of the service of the Dickerson.
That's true. That's true. Okay, Mr. Grinnell, anything else on item 15?
Not for me, thank you.
Thank you. And also 16 too, Mr. Grinnell, I think you've covered it during the budget discussion today?
Yes.
Okay, and Ms. Harris?
Yeah, my report, I'll take any questions.
I have a question. It's my turn.
Commissioner Brennan has a question.
I noticed that you have listed under information technology working on Wi-Fi disclaimer.
Yes.
Is that where we're held up with the Wi-Fi right now, or maybe you could just give us an update?
I have to double check it. I've talked to Steve, will be in tomorrow, so I can touch base with him on those things. You have to create a disclaimer that goes on the splash page, and they're also helping me with the splash page that we're going to have, so having the time to do that, and I do have to touch base, but we have to have the disclaimer, otherwise we'll get into trouble with certain things that may be downloaded. So.
Do you need examples
No,
of
I don't.
others?
Thank you.
Oh, you
I have
do?
an expert that I can contact.
Okay, and so
Not worried about that.
what's the holdup with the project?
As I said, I have a meeting with Steve tomorrow, and I'll contact him. Last I heard, he was going to try to get them up. That was a couple of weeks ago.
At
We'll
Pillar
get
Point?
Some of them up at Pillar Point, yes, but I don't know where that is right now. I haven't had a chance to touch it.
So next time you'll have a better update. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other, okay, anything else, Ms. Harris, that you want to?
I don't, other than I hope we can all be civil and try to keep comments to non-racial comments. I feel that the ghetto comment was a little bit racist, and I wish it hadn't been used. It made me very uncomfortable.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Yeah, I felt the same way when I heard the ghetto comment too. Okay, moving right along. Operations, Mr. Grindy.
Yes, you have my report. Before I get to that, though, two different things. June 7th, Saturday, San Mateo County is doing a disaster preparedness day, and that is in San Mateo at the county fair. Just want to make sure people are aware of that, especially on the coast side with all the other issues of tsunami and such. And then also a letter of appreciation for staff on the rescue of a capsized kayaker. I was gone during this time, but I have the detail that I got and wrote this up for is very limited information just because that staff person wasn't available to talk to. But it was the two that did the rescue were Deputy Harbor Master Dante Madrigal and Deputy Harbor Master Jerry Pemberton. The kayaker had fell off the boat basically, kayak, and got swelled by a wave or something of that sort. There wasn't a ton of detail in the report, but they basically were able to be contacted. They went out and rescued the person.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Any questions, commissioners? Okay, moving right along here. We are now at commission statements and requests, 19C.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have just one comment. I'm amazed and alarmed at the multiple violations of the spirit, if not the letter, of the Brown Act by my colleague, Commissioner Sabrina Brennan, referring to discussions in closed session. In order for the district to do its business, it needs to be able to do some of its business in closed session and needs to have the confidentiality and privacy of that process maintained and secure. I would seriously commend Commissioner Brennan to review with legal counsel the Brown Act as it applies to her comments here tonight, which are videotaped. And I want to disavow, both personally on behalf of the commission as a whole, those violations. Thank you.
Commissioner Tucker.
Thank you. Just one item. The refrigerators that are at the end of Johnson Pier, where the bait is stored for the fishermen going out on their boats, in my opinion, is a safe and sanitary issue. There's real problems out there. Underneath those freezers and coolers, I think they're improperly plumbed, and the electrical leaves one to be suspect. I don't know, speaking of permits, how many permits were used to pull that, if they were ever done. But underneath, there's rotting timber that's on the flat part of that deck. And I'm concerned if we don't take remedial action very quickly, that a complaint will be made for safe and sanitary conditions with the County of San Mateo, and those freezers will be closed and locked. We have to move forward with that, and I would hope that staff, in spite of the objections and the things that were placed in order, that they clarify the issue, get the permits that are necessary, and get those refrigeration units moved off that platform. It's very, very dangerous. It's been used for many, many years. The traffic out there, we all know, is very tight. It's something that they've been able to get by with for many years. But now the situation, I think, comes to the availability of safe and sanitary in the true legal sense of those words. So that's my comments on that.
Thank you. Commissioner Brennan.
Thank you. So I wanted to respond back through the president regarding the accusations coming from Commissioner Holsinger regarding the Brown Act. I don't know what specifically he's thinking of. It was unclear to me from his comments, but that did sound to me like an attack, and I don't appreciate that, and I don't think that we need to waste the public's time with personal attacks. So unless he's got something really specific, I think he should leave the personal attacks outside of the meeting. Maybe leave them altogether. As far as our HR director's concern about my use of the word ghetto, I apologize. That was not the best choice of words. And I apologize if that in any way felt inappropriate to you. I will make sure I don't use that word again. And I regret using that word. It wasn't the best choice. I think that what the point I was trying to make when I chose that word was that we have a history at this district of not taking care of maintenance issues, and we have deferred maintenance. We are charging people fees. They expect a certain level of service, and we're not providing it. We have money coming in. We're spending money on staff and commissioner expenses and legal costs and all these things, but we are not taking care of our infrastructure to the point where we have so many things breaking now. It's hard to imagine how we're going to keep the district afloat, especially given our deficit. So I'm feeling a lot of frustration about that, and I have a lot of concerns about it. So that maybe is a better way of articulating what I was trying to say. Thank you.
Mr. President, I apologize. May I make one more brief statement?
Okay, I'll allow this.
Mr. Grinnell, whatever happened to the report that was done on medical benefits or benefits for the commissioners? It was on the agenda, and all of a sudden it fell off and never got replaced.
It is ready to go back on the agenda. It was kept off recently because of time pressures. There were things that basically needed full and very extensive board consideration. So we actually had it on an agenda.
At your leisure, could you put it back on again?
For the next agenda, we will.
Thank you. Okay, now we are at staff recognition. Staff recognition.
Sorry, I guess I did mine with my report.
Thank you. That's okay. Okay, well, I would like to recognize staff, all of you. I just want to, I know that you bring it up and you recognize one another, but I would just like to recognize staff for all of their continued work. I know that we don't say it enough, so I would like to just say that on behalf of the commission. I think that is it for the agenda. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you. I hear a motion. Do I hear a second? I hear a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And one abstention. Motion carries. We are adjourned.